Misti Green, and you're listening to the iLEAD Misti Blue Podcast. As we move closer to Christmas, I know this season can feel complicated for a lot of people. For some, it's joy and it's lights and it's laughter, and for others, it's heaviness and grief, it's transition, or even a quiet ache that you can't quite name. So today I want to talk about a posture I'm choosing in real time, not because life is easy, but because life is real. I'm calling it delusional optimism. And no, that doesn't mean denial. It doesn't mean pretending pain and discomfort don't exist. It doesn't mean spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity, because that frustrates me too. It means this: I'm awake to reality and I'm choosing joy still. Not because I'm ignorant, but because I'm settled. Moment of transparency. Last Christmas was my first Christmas following my divorce. And on the outside, I did what I've always done. I prepared for the holiday like normal. I spent time with people who filled my heart and my cup. I attempted to host my family on Christmas Day, just as I had so many times before in my home. We opened gifts, and I worked really hard to keep every tradition alive. But I remember this particular moment so clearly. I was standing in the kitchen beginning to prepare for Christmas lunch, and I was stirring the roux for the macaroni, and my youngest son walked in and started helping me. He didn't say anything. He just quietly joined me in the kitchen. We have a cadence like that. And as I stirred the cheese together, tears began to fall. And I remember thinking, this is so stupid. Who cries on Christmas? A few minutes later, my daughter joined me in the kitchen and she looked at me and said, "Mom, it's okay." And all I could do was apologize for not being the joyful host and mom that I had been for so many years before. And if you know me, you know this about me: I live all 365 days for Christmas. I start the countdown the day after Christmas, and my greatest dream is to one day have a very small Christmas tree farm. I wanted this day to be positive, and I wanted to be positive. I wanted to be joyful. I wanted to create magic. But what I didn't understand yet was this: I wasn't failing. I was simply suspended. Not exhausted from doing too much, but unsettled. Standing in a space I hadn't fully landed in yet. I wasn't just releasing a marriage, I was releasing the dream that came with it. See, I don't speak openly about my divorce. I was taught private things remain in the home, not in the streets. But I can speak about the emotions that followed. I remember telling my therapist that I felt like I had failed my children, that out of all the magical Christmases that had happened before, this would be the one that they remembered. And she looked at me so kindly and said, "The first holiday season after loss, whether it's a job, a marriage, or a death, is often the throwaway season. It's hard. And you didn't let the emotions paralyze you. You didn't stay in bed. You pushed through. And that says a whole lot about you." That was the moment I realized I was simply in transition. I hadn't failed. I still showed up, but I was suspended. This year has been different. I've done the deep work of healing wounds that blindsided me. I've learned to embrace peace and in true uncertainty. I've learned that we can't control outcomes and we cannot control the actions of others, only our response to them. And this Christmas, as I decorated my home, a place that has curated so much beauty, Christmases and Easters and birthdays and laughter, I knew something else was true. This was the last time I will place my tree here. This is the last time I will hang garland on this doorway. And instead of choosing fear, instead of choosing loss, I chose opportunity because how many people truly get the chance to start fresh, to move where they want, to live differently, to build something new? I am releasing a home I have loved, one that I poured creativity into, and I will list it in January, trusting what's next. That choice is what I now call delusional optimism. We're living in the age of highlight reels. Everyone else's joys, success, peace, love, and the wins are curated and filtered, and we compare them to our behind the scenes footage. And if we're not careful, we start measuring our lives against someone else's best moments while ignoring the quiet goodness unfolding in our own. Delusional optimism says, I refuse to compare my real life to someone else's edited reel. It says there is goodness here, even if it doesn't look like theirs. And let's be honest, pessimism often masquerades as wisdom. It feels safer, it feels realistic, it feels like emotional protection. But over time, pessimism doesn't protect you. All it does is it shrinks your capacity for joy. It trains you to look for what will fail instead of what could flourish. It surrounds you with people who reinforce fear instead of possibility. And I've learned this the hard way. If you are always bracing for impact, you never get to exhale. Delusional optimism is not everything is fine, everything is good, everything is great. It is everything is real, and I still get to choose my lens. It's saying, I see the challenges and the gifts. I acknowledge uncertainty and opportunity. I hold grief without letting it define the future. Faith, faith shows up quietly right here in that space. Scripture speaks of a peace that surpasses all understanding, not because we understand everything, but because we don't need to in order to remain grounded. This is acceptance without full explanation. This is settled living. What if instead of scrolling for joy, you started collecting it? The quiet coffee, the safe home, the laughter that still surprises you and catches you off guard, the freedom to pivot, and the chance to reimagine what's next. Not everything needs to be extraordinary to be sacred. Delusional optimism trains your eye to ask, what is good here? What is good where my feet are? What is good right now? One of the most important shifts I've made in this entire situation, I no longer surround myself with people who bond over pessimism. I look for people who protect joy, speak possibility, talk about vision and dreams, challenge cynicism, and remind me who I am when life feels so heavy. Not people who ignore reality, but people who refuse to camp in despair. See, your environment shapes your outlook. You got to choose wisely. This is the heart of it. And I'm no longer suspended, waiting for clarity before living. I'm settled. I'm settled in my values. I'm so settled in my faith. I'm settled in the ability to move forward without full certainty. I don't need to understand everything to keep going. I don't need guarantees to remain hopeful. And I don't need permission to protect my joy. And that's not ignorance, that's fortitude. If Christmas feels heavy for you this year, hear this. You are not wrong for feeling that way, and you are not required to stay there. You're allowed to grieve and still choose joy. You're allowed to release and still hope. And you're allowed to stand in uncertainty and still move forward. Be delusionally optimistic, not because life is easy, but because you are resilient. Not because faith erases pain, but because it anchors you when pain exists. Choose joy on purpose, protect it fiercely, and let hope be louder than fear. Choose delusional optimism.